Hello, and welcome to the next installment of your video lectures. Today we're going to talk all about relationship selling. Any important aspect of any business venture is about building relationships with your customer, with your client base, and with the management personnel around your client base. When I was a young salesperson, just a wee lad, my sales manager once said, and I've never forgotten this, my sales manager once said, sales is all about building a relationship. Think about this. If someone invites you to dinner every week and you just show up and eat and then leave, they're going to get kind of tired of you coming to dinner. However, if they invite you to dinner every week and you solve a problem for them or you help them out in some way, they're going to look forward to seeing you every week. That's what sales is all about, is building that relationship, helping customers with problems, understanding their needs, having empathy for their needs, and really understanding what it takes to build that relationship, to have a solid foundation with your customers. So with that, let's get on to relationship selling. As I said in the introduction, today's chapter is all about building relationships. The key to success in any selling situation is to establish, build, and manage relationships. Your customers need to want to see you. They need to think about you're going to help them solve a problem. All business people have problems every single day. If you can help them solve their problem with your product, your service, or your knowledge about the industry or about their problems, then they're going to want to see you, and you're going to be much more successful as a sales representative. All business really is defined by customer relationships, even if you're not in a sales role. Let's say you're an accountant and you're in an accounting role. You want to have that relationship with your customers so that they trust you, so that you can provide them a service, and they trust that you're going to do the right thing for them. They trust that you have their needs in mind, and you as the accountant can solve their problems through whatever accounting services that you can provide for them. The same thing in finance, the same thing in management. Any type of business is defined by customer relationship, and that customer relationship depends on adding value. You can see the definition of adding value down in the blue square down there, but it's really creative improvements to solving needs and enhancing the customer sales, the customer experience. So how do you do this? You do it by partnership, which is defined really as develop a high quality long-term relationship that focuses on the customer's buying problems or the customer's problems. Sometimes as a sales representative, you might not have the solution or the product that will fit the service or the product that will fit their needs. However, sometimes you can just rely on your business acumen, your business knowledge. When I was a sales representative for Bausch & Lomb, sometimes my customers, which were doctors, had problems not really necessarily with eye care, but maybe with practice management, how to grow their practice. Because I had business experience, because I had business knowledge, and because I had a marketing degree, I could help them grow their business through marketing tactics. Even though I wasn't selling a product or service, they still relied on me to solve their needs. That made my selling job easier. Then once a month when I called on these doctors, they wanted to see me, they looked forward to seeing me, and every time I saw them, they had new problems, and they were very forthcoming in their problems so that I could help them. So 3 key things: shared values. You have to be empathetic and understand their values and your values. You need to understand a clear purpose of what the customer is doing, what they're trying to do, what their industry is about, and what they're trying to solve. And then finally, what we're doing is we're not selling anymore. Once we establish that relationship, we're supporting, we're solving problems, and we're creating customer experiences that are worthwhile for not only you as a salesperson in order to sell whatever you're trying to sell, but also your prospect who are looking towards solving their problems and really understanding your customer, what they're trying to do and what their goals are. So really, there are 4 key groups of customer people that you're going to be dealing with in a sales role. The first one are the customers or the buyers. I know a lot of you guys have taken buyer behavior, which is a marketing course we offer here at St. John Fisher. And a lot of people have taken principles of marketing, which is another one. And we talk about the buying center. Well, a salesperson has to have a strategy to build relationships with everybody in the buying center. That buying center includes the buyers or the customers, which you see on the very left. It also includes the secondary decision makers, or what we call the influencers, those that help influence the purchasing decisions. Then we also have to have the company support staff and have a relationship with them. Those would be the gatekeepers. Sometimes they're administrative staff, sometimes they're in administration positions like human resources or something like that. And then finally the management personnel, and that includes upper management, the people that those three people report to. If you can have a strategy to develop relationships and secure a relationship with each person in the buying center, you're doing much, much better. And your job as a salesperson becomes a lot easier because now you're not selling a product. You're not selling a service. You're selling a solution to their problems, and you're building that relationship along the time with it. So it starts really with ourselves. Seriously. It starts with you as a sales representative, and it starts with your self-concept. How you perceive you and how you look at yourself. Because the way you perceive yourself oftentimes is the way that the buyer or the prospect is going to perceive you also. Sometimes, depending on the buyer, depending on the prospect that you're looking at, sometimes your perceptions about yourself might not be the same perception that they have about yourself. So sometimes it takes really good questioning to understand what they think of you and really their trust level about you. So how do you develop a more positive self-concept? You focus on the future. You focus on what your goals are and what your prospects' goals are. You don't be concerned about your past mistakes. You focus on what's coming ahead. And then it's critical, absolutely critical, that you develop expertise around your industry, around your product, around the service, and around what you can anticipate as your customers' needs. As you build that, you start to build a positive mental attitude, which enhances your self-image of self, which enhances your self-concept. We play a win-win philosophy around here because if you're solving the prospect's needs, they're winning. And if they're buying from you, you're winning. Anybody that plays a I win, you lose is not going to be a sales representative for very long. That's not the way you understand a relationship strategy. Now, in some cases, I've seen some sales representatives that play a win-lose. And that's fine. They get a quick sale. They get the commission check. But the prospect never wants to see them again because they don't trust them. Win-win philosophy is the first step that we go about self-concept and about building trust between you and that particular prospect. You've got to make sure that you have the buyer's interests in your mind and the best interests for your buyer in your mind. And then what you need to do is match that with your interests. Oftentimes, that's by solving a problem or being empathetic and using your product or solution in order to solve that problem. You also need to be aware of your prospect's goals. What are their personal goals? What is their business goals? Do they want to be promoted? Do they want to make their jobs easier? Do they want to have make the people that are working for them easier? Do they want to grow their business? All of those types of things are the goals of the prospect. Once you understand the goals of the prospect and you have those interests in mind, and then you can help them achieve that either with your business acumen or with your product or with your service, then you're developing that win-win philosophy. And really, you need to live those behaviors. And you need to compare yourself, and you need to be like those that do play win-win. Learn from your peers. There are people out there in your company that are very successful, and they're very successful at selling. Understand why they're successful and try to adapt those behaviors. So win-lose versus win-win. You can read them here, but really helping other people solve their problems is the number one aspect of playing win-win. Never making promises that they can't keep, never over-promising and under-delivering, but always under-promising and over-delivering. And always making sure that the blame falls squarely on you. If something goes wrong, take the blame for it, apologize, and make sure that you can fix what caused the problems. Now, we talked about this just a minute ago, but salespeople also need empathy. When a prospect has a problem, that's actually very good for a salesperson, because we know that oftentimes we can solve that problem with a product or a service. However, we don't want to make the prospect feel that we aren't empathetic to their needs and to their problems. We don't want to pounce, as it is. We don't want to say, oh, I'm glad you have that problem. We want to be empathetic and then also solve that problem and fit a solution to that problem, and a solution that benefits us. That's your win-win coming right at it. You're empathetic. You uncover your prospect's problems. You're empathetic to those problems. And then suggesting, I guess that's the best word, suggesting a product or service that solves that problem really is your win-win. And even though closing is a powerful means of enhancing our ego as a salespeople, that's what we're trying to do, is close sales. Sometimes we need to make sure that we're empathetic along the way as we're closing sales. It's not about you on the sales side. It's about you solving the buyer's needs. It's all about the buyer. And that is playing win-win. So nonverbal messages can help you make sure that you're feeling empathetic towards that prospect. Silent messages, we call them, nonverbal communication. We're going to get into that later when we get into the sales to sales portion of this particular class. But your facial expressions, your voice tone, your gestures, your appearance, your posture, all of those can help the prospect understand that you do feel empathetic towards them and that you do feel their needs and actually feel their pain. And then the gestures, the tone, the facial expressions, when you can solve that need, is critical to understanding relationships and making sure you understand the relationship of the buyer. So with nonverbal cues and with nonverbal communication, it starts with a handshake. Make sure your handshake is respectful. You want it to be firm, a firm grip, but you don't want to be too firm with that you're going to hurt the other person's hand. The other thing is when you're shaking hands with a female prospect, don't lighten up on your handshake, because we need to make sure that we are treating them just as we would treat their male counterparts. So you want to give them a firm handshake also. A firm handshake is a symbol that you have respect for them and you have confidence in yourself. As you're shaking hands, make sure you make eye contact. Make sure that you interlock. You make sure that you have the right duration of grip. And oftentimes when you're shaking hands, make sure you're not looking at your hand, but you're looking at the prospect in the eye and you're smiling and you have good facial expressions with your handshake. Remembering names is one of the hardest things. It's really difficult for me. It's one of my least things I'm good at. And that's because I have 100 students a semester and it's very difficult to recall their names. But recalling their names and using the prospect's names often in a sales situation really enhances that empathy and enhances that relationship. It's good to ask how a person wants to be addressed, whether they want to be addressed as a doctor, as a professor, for instance. Me, I like it when you call me Sicker. You don't have to call me Professor Sicker. I like it just regular Sicker. I don't want to be called Ron. but I want to be called sicker. Making sure that you use their name every time you see them, and forgetting the name of somebody could be a real problem as you move forward in your relationship. And then finally, we talked about facial expressions, which are continually sending message. Your facial expression should, when you greet them, should be a smile, but then as they go through their problems and their needs, you should show empathy during your facial expression. That concludes part 1. We're going to come back with part 2, which starts with appearance, in just a minute.